Hey everyone, this is Chris, the author of the Tales from Tellis Saga and the creator of the Tales from Tellis Trading Card Game. It's been so amazing to watch these awesome characters come to life through the card game. We just recently, last month, released our Lunathal Base Set, and we just had our first championship tournament. It was so fun to watch people get into the cards and strategize with deck building and finding out which classes synergize best with one another. So after playtesting it a bunch with friends, reffing the tournament, and ultimately creating the game, I think I have a pretty good handle of which cards are best. So we're going to make a definitive tier list for the Lunathal Base Set. Now this is just for the duel game mode. There is another game mode called the raid game mode where you work with up to 4 people to take down a mighty raid boss. That's a ton of fun, but today we're just talking about 1 versus 1 duels. We have a new set coming out, the Slippery Skirmish, based on book 1.5 that will totally change the dynamic of the game, adding new classes and civilizations. But for now, we're going to focus on the Lunathal Base Set, all 28 cards, including that Winter Wyvern secret rare with a 4% drop rate and the Moonfruit promo. So let's dive into some strategies that the finalists in the tournament used. I use myself, I see my friends use, and have a lot of success. So let's go over where each card stacks up. There are some first edition base set packs still available on my website. So if you want to support the TCG, you can get one. I also have a couple Moonfruit tournament promos. So if you want to grab one of those, just make sure you write a note to me and I'll include it in your package. So here goes the tier list. Okay, we're going to start with the F tier here. Unfortunately, there are 2 cards that just have to land in the F tier, the first of which is Soulbridger Acolyte. Unfortunately, Sun Elves just don't get a ton of synergy in the base set. In fact, they basically get none because Sun Elves aren't a huge part of the first book. In future sets, we'll see Sun Elves get more love, but right now, Soulbridger Acolyte just lacks synergy. His health being 6 is on the lower side, and he does decent damage. He does Arcana attack, which right now is the better of the 2 types of attacks, at 1d4 dice roll. Now, the positive about this guy is you can add him into a Soulbridger deck with some creatures, because he does have the Soul Bridge ability, which means a creature can be placed on him during the support phase action of the turn, and he can reap those benefits with whatever buff the creature can give him. The only problem is his passive ability, Discipline Bond, heals the creature. Now that sounds all well and good on paper, but you know that when a creature is knocked out from the game, you do not lose an arcane point. So you'll find your opponent really focus on your dueler, making a heal for your creature not that important. So unfortunately, he goes in F for now, but I'm feeling optimistic about him in the future. Okay, next is Tarvin. So for anyone who's read the book, you know Tarvin is a relatively important character for Theron's development in the story. Unfortunately, when it comes to the game, he just doesn't really stack up compared to the other duelers. Let's talk about the positives of using a Tarvin. He's a dueler class Moonfolk, which is great. He's going to get a lot of buffs from civilizations and other things. He's got 7 health, which is very good. And he can Soul Bridge, which is very nice to have. He also has a pretty useful passive ability. When you attach a creature to Tarvin, you can draw a card, and that's going to become more important than the second set when having cards in your hand is going to mean survival. In the second set, you're going to see a lot of people discarding cards and possibly losing lives because of that. Now, where Tarvin really goes wrong is his damage output. He does 1 Arcana damage. Unfortunately, I just found these 2 cards to be the most underwhelming, so that's actually it for F tier, and it's going to get really interesting as we move on to D tier. My first pick for D tier has to be the Arcane Weave card, Sparkwield. Don't get me wrong, this card can be a game changer when it comes to win or lose, but it's a gamble, and I'll explain why. You roll a d6, if you get even, your opponent shows you their hand, and you can choose to either get rid of all their Arcane Weave cards or all their Relic cards, and we know that Relic cards are very, very powerful. This can stop your opponent in their tracks from playing important support cards. The only problem is you have a 50% chance to roll odd where you heal both of your duelers by 1 health point. Now, any heal is nice, but healing by 1 is not a huge deal because usually you're going to get hit for 3, 4, 5 points of damage. So unfortunately, that heal just isn't enough to help sometimes, and this card would be higher on the list if you didn't have to roll to have your opponent discard important support cards. So because of that, I saw a lot of people bank on this in the tournament and just have it not come to fruition for them. So our first Arcane Weave card going in the D tier, and it's going to be joined by another Arcane Weave card, Soul Bridge. Now, there is a very specific scenario where this card can be game-changing. If your opponent plays that Winter Wyvern secret rare creature on a Soul Bridger, and you need to get that card out of the active field, playing a Soul Bridge can be game-winning for you. The only problem is, once again, there's a 50% chance that you're only going to deal 2 damage to an attached creature, and that's just a little scratch to the Winter Wyvern. It actually doesn't even take out a slip, it would only take out Tarvan's Eagle. So that's why Soul Bridge and our first creature, Tarvan's Eagle, is going to land in D tier as well. So Tarvan's Eagle has a scout passive ability that allows you at the end of your turn to roll 1d6 and possibly take a peek at your opponent's hand, which is decent for strategy but doesn't really help that much. His combat ability, Friend, allows you to heal the bonded dueler by 1d4 health, which sounds nice, but you have to take up your attack action to use it. It can delay the game a little bit, but doesn't really help. Most people would rather just attack. Now, there might be Civilization cards in the future that allow you to use those combat actions as support phase actions, and when that comes out, Tarvan's Eagle will be a way higher ranked card, but for now, he is a D tier. Now, the last card in the D tier is going to be the lovable, the goofy String Bean. Now, you might look at String Bean's card and go, wait, how could he be D tier? I mean, he's got the second highest health pool in the base set. Well, String Bean is basically just a tank. He's there to support other people, take damage, and his damage output is not great. 1d4 minus 1, which means if you roll a 1, he's not doing any damage that turn. None of the civilizations give him a buff because he's a Sun Elf. His biggest benefit is that he helps Pimbo have the chance to reduce damage. His combat ability, Big Target, can buy you time in a sticky situation, and it works phenomenally in the raid, but unfortunately in a 1 versus 1 duel, there are just better options than String Bean right now. Do I think in future sets this card will come back as we can build more Sun Elf decks? Certainly, but right now, he's a D tier. Okay, moving on, this C tier represents cards that I would absolutely put in my deck for any sort of duel or casual play. And we're going to start with the first card in the set, just the number 1 base set Theron. The winner of the tournament was using this card a lot, but even though he's the main character of the book, he was not the star of the show when using him in the game. He was more of a support card for Lyra. Now, the thing about Theron is he is not a Soul Bridger. He can only connect and bond with Slip because of his first bond ability, and actually you can play Slip and then play another support card. So you basically get 2 support phase actions when Theron is active. He doesn't have a great health pool and he doesn't have a great damage output. Theron is a decent option for buffing Lyra. There is a character just like him who's a bit better, and we'll talk about him in the future. Okay, we're gonna go on to our next C tier, which is Slip. Slip is the lovable otter, and he's got a really simple card. He gives his bonded dueler +1 to their attack. That's it. The problem is, Slip, being a creature, can only attach to Soul Bridgers and Theron right now. So if you have a Winter Wyvern card, it pretty much negates having a Slip. But if you don't have the Winter Wyvern, I would include Slip, maybe 1 or 2 copies in your deck, because he can survive that odd roll on a Soul Bridge card, which gives him a decent amount of survivability, and doing more damage is always welcome. So Slip is C tier. Okay, next is a character that I feel like is just like Theron, but just a little bit better. Alright, now if you read the book, you know Acolyte Orlo had kind of a tragic end, but he is a trained Soul Bridger. So because of that, he can Soul Bridge any creature, not just Slip. He's got 6 points of health, he does 2 damage just like Theron, but now he can Soul Bridge any creature, and he has a combat ability, Lack Control, that allows him to retreat. So instead of attacking, you can discard him, play a new dueler, and not lose a life, and I saw that really be helpful in the tournament. So he's just like Theron, except he doesn't buff Lyra, just a little better in my opinion. Still C tier. Okay, we've talked about a lot of Sun Elves and Moonfolk, but now we're going to put our first pirate on the tier list. We're going to talk about Tate, the Highwayman, a real jerk in the books, but he's got some very good benefits against Moonfolk in the game. Pirates, of course, are one of the best dueler classes in the game. He has a decent health pool of 7 health points, and he does 1d4 -1 damage, but when he's attacking Moonfolk, he can get rid of that -1. He also has a retreat just like Acolyte Orlo, but his is a little bit better. When he retreats, Moonfolk opponents do -2 damage on their next attack, which means he can retreat, and even though you're missing that combat ability, you kinda can negate a little bit of the enemy's damage, making missing a combat ability not such a big deal. Tate was one of the most used cards in the tournament, and I saw that retreat used a lot. I think you could argue that Tate could be higher. Unfortunately, his damage output just isn't enough for me to put him higher. Next is a great strategy card to use. This is Ice Shape. Ice Shape is wonderful because it doesn't attach to any dueler, so you can just play it. What it does is you pick an enemy dueler, and that dueler cannot attack next round. Now, if you know the game, you know you can have up to 2 duelers or 1 duo out at a time. And if you're facing a duo who's taking up both dueler slots, playing this card is so amazing because you're blocking your enemy and they essentially have to skip a turn of combat. Playing this can force your opponent to put out another dueler if they only have 1, and it can block a dueler with the highest amount of damage. Most of the time, your opponent can just use their other dueler to attack, but this buys you a little time, can save you a little health, and it's a decent card. So Ice Shape is going to be our last card in the C tier, and we're going to move up to some pretty great cards in the B tier. And the first thing going in the B tier is all 3 civilizations. We've got Lunathal, Castle Lavaria, and Or's Rest. Lunathal and Castle Lavaria are basically the same. They give +1 to their dueler class, Lunathal for the Moonfolk, and Castle Lavaria for Pirates and Gnomes. There's no gamble on it, it's just a permanent +1, and it doesn't attach to a dueler, so it just kind of sits there and buffs your party. Or's Rest, on the other hand, is better for the more risky players who want to risk it for the biscuit. With Or's Rest, you need to roll 1d6 at the start of your turn. If you roll even, you get +2 damage, which means you're going to hit really hard, but there's also a 50% chance you're not going to get any bonus. I've seen people roll odd over and over and over, and it's like they didn't even have a civilization out, and I've seen other people roll even every single time and just wipe out the other team. Or's Rest is a gamble, but it's a great one to have out to support your pirates and gnomes. Okay, next we're going to have our first rare, Philadrius. The chief astrologer of Lunathal is going to be a B tier. Okay, let's talk about what's good about Philadrius. He's got a huge health pool of 8 health. He's a dueler class Moonfolk, which means he's getting that Lunathal buff. His passive ability, Ice Wall, allows him to potentially half melee damage, making him a strong counter against pirates and gnomes. Now, where Philadrius goes wrong is his damage output. 2 base Arcana damage, which isn't a lot, and his combat ability, Stormcourt Scepter, uses his combat phase action to deal 4 damage to an enemy creature, and then he heals by 1. Again, that heal by 1 isn't a lot, and dealing damage to a creature is not that crucial. It would take 2 turns to take out the Winter Wyvern. Your other team wouldn't even lose a life, so maybe 1 in your deck. I don't know, he's better in the raid. He's gonna be B tier. Okay, from here on out, we have must-haves for a deck. Healthy is a must-have for a Pirate Gnome deck. That being said, she's not really the star of the show. She's buffing Pimbo. She's got 7 health, a low 2 attack, but Pimbo gets +1 damage when she's out there, and she helps Pimbo take less damage. So she's a great support unit. She's not going to be your main damage dealer, but I would have 2 copies in my Pirate Gnome deck. Okay, next is going to be a little bit more controversial. These guys could be placed in high B or low A. They were used greatly in the tournament, so it's really just up to your playstyle. But next one I'm going to put up on the board here, I think for low A, high B, is Pimbo. Now, the reason Pimbo isn't higher is because Pimbo doesn't have a lot of health. He's got 6 health points. But he does 1d4 damage, +1 when Healthy is out. Keep Healthy out or put a String Bean and he's going to take less damage too. You add a Civilization card like Or's Rest and he gets that +2. You put a Void Meteorite on him and he's going to hit really hard. So the whole reason Pimbo is this high is because of his damage output. He doesn't have great survivability, but I can see this card aging well into second set decks because of all his utility. Okay, let's look at Moonfruit. This is our first and right now only promo card. And this right now is our first relic to hit the game. I actually feel like Moonfruit deserves to be like mid B tier. This card is great because it doesn't have that attach keyword, so you don't really need to attach it to use it. You just heal 2. All your duelers and creatures heal 2, but you're getting hit for 4 or 5, 6 points of damage, so that heal isn't very significant. It's just okay. Alright, here we go. One of my favorite cards in the set, Lyra. The second card in the set. Lyra is very solid. She was one of the stars of the tournament, and I have 2 of her in my deck. She's a very, very powerful dueler. Put her with a Lunathal, put her with a base set Theron. She's going to hit for 1d4 plus 2 right off the bat. She's got 7 health, which is great, and her Shade ability is clutch. If a pirate or gnome is attacking her, she can roll a d6. On 5 or 6, she blocks the damage completely. Now, this only works for melee damage, but I've seen that 33% chance to block come into fruition many times, and it was game-changing. So Lyra is a total MVP. I would have 2 of her in my deck. She's definitely an A tier. Moving on to my other A tiers here, we're going to put in Arana, the pirate. I would argue that she's about equal with Lyra. She's got the same stats, 7 health, 1d4 damage, but she deals 1 extra damage to anyone who has Arcana damage, so she's a good counter to Moonfolk. Also, she probably had one of the most used combat abilities. Her Untrustworthy ability allows her to roll 1d6. On even, she destroys her opponent's Civilization card and deals 1 damage to both of the opponent's duelers. On odd, she just heals. So when you roll even, it's really great. When you roll odd, you kind of wasted an attack. But if you're making a pirate or gnome deck, you must have Arana. You need 2 copies of Arana to be successful. She's a great card to play. Her partner, Black Eyes Barnett, is next. Captain Barnett, the dastardly pirate from the books, is one of the strongest characters in the game. He's got 8 health, just like Philadrius. He's a dueler class pirate, just like Arana and Tate. He deals 1d4 damage, and when his partner is a pirate, he'll also deal +1 damage. So he's going to be one of your main duelers doing damage. You combine that with a Civilization card, maybe a Void Meteorite, put 2 of these in your deck, you're going to hit hard. Okay, next is our one and only duo in the base set. That's 2 characters in one. You can argue they could be S tier. It's Pimbo and Stringbean Dynamic Duo. They have a whopping 10 health points and 2 dueler classes, Gnome being the most important right now, but Sun Elf may be getting buffed in the future. They also deal a ton of damage, 1d4 plus 2 damage. Add a Civilization bonus to that, a Void Meteorite, these guys are going to hit so hard. Now, the only problem with this duo is that when they are knocked out of the game, you lose 2 arcane points. So you lose 2 of your 4 lives when these guys are defeated. So you must use these guys wisely. I saw a lot of people try to line up their board so that when their 3rd life was gone, they didn't have any duelers out and they could play this card. Therefore, it didn't matter if they lost 2 lives. But setting up the board to do that can be tricky. You might find yourself holding on to these guys all game, waiting for the right moment to play them, and it just never shows up. I think this card will age nicely. I think when you combine it with a card like Shade or Luna's Tear or the Void Meteorite, they're going to really shine. So if you're going to have this card in your deck, make sure you have plenty of support cards to help them. Okay, here comes our game-breaking S-tier powerhouse cards. And we're going to start with the Arcane Weave card, Shade. Shade is crucial. I don't care what deck you're running, you should have 2 of these guys in your deck. It is a attachable card that allows you to either block the damage or take half damage. This card was used a ton by the finalists in the tournament, and it's super useful for the raid. When you really need this card to block damage, it has a 50% chance to do so, and it's super strong. Just like the next card, the Void Meteorite is also going to be an S-tier relic. Just like Shade, this is an attachable card. It's like a one-time use Winter Wyvern. So if you don't have that secret rare, or even if you do, put a couple of these in your deck, they're very useful and they can maximize your damage output. Next, we're going to have one of the hardest cards to pull in the whole set, Theron Ice Shaper. He's our first unique card. He's got 7 health. You can only have 1 in your deck because he's a unique, and he does 1d4 plus 1 base damage. Although this Theron doesn't buff Lyra, he has Soul Bridge, and he has a pulse ability that allows you to search through your deck for a creature. As we get stronger creatures in the game, this is going to be so useful. He is a must-have for a Moonfolk or a Soul Bridger deck. If you want to maximize this guy's potential, you need a Lunathal out, and you need to attach the Winter Wyvern to him. To me, he's the second best dueler in the game. There is one dueler that outclasses him a little. We'll get to that in a second. Next is Luna's Tear. This is another unique. You can only have 1 in your deck, but you need it in your deck. It's like Shade, but it works 100% of the time, every time. So you attach it to a dueler, it's just going to block all the damage the next time that dueler takes damage. It's a must-have. It's very simple. Okay, finally, we have what I believe to be the best dueler in the game. We have Azure, the Rider. Azure is the rider of the Winter Wyvern. He's the old hero of Lunathal. He's got a pool of 8 health. He's a dueler class Moonfolk. He does 1d4 plus 1 Arcana damage or 1d4 melee damage, because in future sets, some people might be resistant to certain types of damage, so he can do both. He can Soul Bridge any creature, and he's got a very strong passive ability in Former Hero. If your opponent plays an Arcane Weave card like Shade or Ice Shape or Soul Bridge or Spark Wield, he has a 50% chance to dispel it immediately. To me, he's like Theron Ice Shaper, but he's got more health and more utility, so I think he's just a little bit better. And he's not a unique, so you can have 2 of him in your deck. And now, we get on to the last card of the set, the secret rare Winter Wyvern, an 8 health creature, so very tanky. It gives the bonded dueler 1d4 extra damage, so it's like having a permanent Void Meteorite. If you're facing a Winter Wyvern, you better have some Soul Bridge Arcane Weave cards to try to get this thing out of the way, or a Winter Wyvern of your own. Right now, it is the strongest card in the game. If for some reason your Winter Wyvern is dispelled or destroyed, it will not lose you an Arcane point. So having 2 Winter Wyverns in your deck, if you can find 2 of them, is key, because it is not a unique. Okay guys, that wraps up the entire tier list. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Are there some cards that are your favorite? Do you have any deck building strategies that you can see just based on this tier list? What are you excited for in the second set? I will say there are a ton of exciting things coming. There's new classes, new creatures, new relics, and new civilizations. If you want to learn more about the Tales from Tellis TCG, please visit my website in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life is a gift.